Welcome back to OneHome podcast. I'm Marcel, your host, and today I'm again joined by our CEO, Satja.
Hey everybody, welcome back.
Welcome, Satja. Glad to have you back. Of course,
to be back.
I'm glad as well. Of course, we now took a bit longer to record this second episode because there was Light+Building in between, as we mentioned in the first episode a month ago. So I'm sure that a lot has happened in the meantime. How are you feeling?
My head is full, it's exploding. So many new things. I cannot really process them all.
I hope we can process it together in this episode.
Let's see.
Step by step.
Let's see how my head works. Yeah.
That's great. Of course, Light+Building wasn't the only thing that happened. A lot of activities was going on in OneHome development as well as in the smart home space overall. Lots of new releases, stuff coming out, especially Matter stuff. If we mention just what was happening on the development side, there was a new, bigger release for OneHome server, v5.1. This was just a week, maybe 2 weeks ago.
I think it was during Light+Building.
Hey, it was during Light+Building.
I think it was during Light+Building. I'm not sure, but I actually, if there is a major thing in a certain release, then I know about it, but otherwise I have these development versions for 1-2 months. I'm the first test
Of
bunny,
course.
I'm the one that
In the trenches.
yeah,
doing the testing.
I get all the alphas and what I want to say is most of these features I already had, so nothing really changed for me that much. For example, the big thing now is the customization of the user app. So now you can have custom backgrounds, right?
Backgrounds in the mobile app.
And
Amazing.
I've been showing that for half year already. But I'm glad that everybody else has this feature now, because now the app really looks much better.
Yeah, it makes a lot of difference. It seems like a trivial update. Like
you cannot
adding
believe.
backgrounds.
You cannot believe. It seems like the most important feature. So in the past year or two, since we launched the app, we had a lot of. People liked it, because it's local, it works good, there's no limits, no lagging, and so on. But I always got this comment like, but it doesn't look well for the end user, right? It has to look great. And actually, I couldn't believe it, even when I just saw the mock-ups in Figma, and when you just change that black background for, even a color background, but if you put like a nice photo in the back, it's really different. It really looks great. And, it's like sometimes things that seem small on paper, then in reality are the most important features or things in as it is with this background, for example.
The details make the whole experience, right? Yeah. Of course, this was not the only update. You can check out all of our releases on OneHome documentation, and you can check out what was updated or added or fixed on our OneHome server family. I just wanted to mention that I really appreciate this. What you do. You say, and it's true. I can confirm. Satja is basically the first guy that gets a go at new releases before they're public, and I appreciate this. That you have a lot of work, CEO, leading the company, but you still take the time to test things, to give feedback, to lead with
Let's say now I have an excuse to geek around,
Yeah.
Otherwise, when you have a family and, a lot of responsibilities, then you're always like, you don't have time for gadgets. I used to play games when I was young, so I don't have time for that anymore. And, now I can take a couple of hours during the weekend, test some devices or some features.
Okay.
And, makes me feel like a kid.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have an excuse that, this is kind of work stuff, right? So it needs to be done, right?
Needs to be done. So weekends.
So I mean, I spend an odd day during the weekend, testing new stuff and reporting back to our development team. But of course, mostly, it's like, and this is my favorite thing. It's not so new, but I really like geeking around with Lua.
Mm-hmm.
And connecting Bosch or weather services or like this is like something I really like. Of course, this also comes hand in hand with the rise of AI, right? Because
of course, yeah.
I mean, I did some code when I was younger, 20 plus years ago. But if I had to do everything without AI right now, it's like it would take me too much time. But, with AI, I'm able to do maybe some things in a day or 2 days. So like this is what I really enjoy. And, it's like, this is what I also write about as Dr. Smart Home. It's like, and I'm also interested to know, it's like if somebody did something crazy, I'm very interested to see this. So like, welcome to send me your Lua automations, It's like,
We talked about this, right? We should do like a little bit of a user-generated portal when you can upload your Lua script or automation and also download others and then play around with that. So maybe we should get around to doing that.
I mean, we did it once with automations, but I think that, automations without Lua, you cannot really do magic with it, right? I mean, you can do the basic stuff that is needed. It's Lua is mostly not needed in professional projects, only in corner cases. But this is what really enables you to do, something out of the box. And I'm thinking like, let's build a community around it, because I would guess, I don't know, because, server is local. We don't get a lot of stuff back from our users. So we don't really know, who did what or if somebody did anything.
Yeah, of course.
So this is an idea to make a portal, maybe, have a prize for the best or most out of the box Lua script. We could do it. We could do it.
Let's see what we can do. Of course, in the comments, you can leave your requests, or if you would like something like that, to get a portal where you can explore automations for OneHome server. So let us know, definitely. I wanted to also talk a little bit of just some releases that were happening in the past month and a half. Of course, there was this new IKEA devices. That was like the big one, and they are so cute. The devices.
I think that's definitely the biggest thing in Matter. I mean, maybe somebody will not agree, but I do believe it is. And why? Because it's bringing Matter and via Matter smart homes closer to a regular user, let's say. And I really think that when you have smart devices in IKEA, people are kind of more open in buying them and using them. I don't know if this is tied only to the emotional attachment that people have to
a brand,
to this brand, to this particular brand, or is it because these devices are, I don't know, somehow different? I can tell you in my case, as I said, I geek around. I have I have a lot of KNX in my apartment, and also a lot of Matter devices, and I want to give the example of my wife, and she's not really against it, but she doesn't really care, She's like, okay, you're geeking around, I don't care. Of course, then she uses some functions, to be completely fair. So after,
she's warming up to it.
She is using some functions like voice control and this. I have this Matter button to control the TV, change source, volume up, down, etc. So she's using that. But, when I brought home the new Matter devices and the air quality monitor and that cute little remotes
with the spinning wheel,
with the spinning
with
wheel.
the dimmer. Yeah.
I mean, she really liked that.
Yeah,
Honestly, she was like, yeah, that can, that can be there on the table. And otherwise, she's always like, nothing on the table. Why do you have all these gadgets there? But for this, there was really, she really accepted it. So I think that this is the what IKEA is bringing to the smart home space, to the smart home world.
Yeah, they got something special going on, definitely.
I mean, it's also like, I don't know if I talked about that already in the previous podcast or no, but it's also important for KNX. Not as I think this fear that Matter will replace KNX and is totally I mean, that's not going to happen, at least not soon. But Matter is great in KNX as an add-on in many things, and maybe this is too long conversation, but just the point that I wanted to make is that, when people are buying KNX, there's a certain problem, because when you're buying something which is, let's say, not cheap, so there's a substantial amount of finances involved, then, it really helps in the sales process if people can get emotionally attached, and this happens with certain brands like Apple, etc., and also IKEA. And the problem in KNX is that, often, or most of the time, the end user that's really buying the house with this smart home installation in doesn't know the brands, and it's difficult for him to understand. He is afraid that it's gonna be complicated, and he doesn't have this like when you're buying a Mercedes or when you're buying Apple phone, right? You're willing to pay more and so on, but in KNX this is missing, and that's where Matter can help, because if you just casually float IKEA, you just say like, yeah, you're gonna be able to control your shades with this IKEA remote, or you're gonna be able to control your house with Apple Home. That's where people start feeling this emotional attachment. That's one thing, but the other thing that's even more important is they lose the fear that this is going to be complicated and difficult to use.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh yeah, of course, IKEA, I saw that the other day. They're selling in IKEA. I know IKEA, and it's not complicated. And I know Apple, and it's not complicated. So if you're just, you don't have to pitch like, full-on Matter. You can just casually float it in the sales process. And I can tell you, if there's 3 integrators, and one of them is doing that, otherwise they're offering similar services, similar equipment for similar price, but one of them is doing that. So, involving these brands in the sales process, I firmly believe, and I also see examples on the market that, they convert for the whole KNX setup more easily because of that. So, there's other uses, other functionalities where Matter can be great. Of course, I think still the biggest thing in why particularly KNX buyers want Matter is because of Apple Home. This is the biggest thing, because most KNX buyers are iPhone users.
Yeah, we did research on this also. I think there's we have a video on our YouTube. Actually,
that was
it was like a couple years ago, and I think the numbers are a bit different now. But it was like a vast majority. I mean, they wanted Apple Home.
Yeah. We did it back then too, because
we can leave the link in the description.
Yeah. Back then we wanted to find out, should we go into developing support for Apple Home, because it was quite a lengthy process, and for a small company like OneHome was at the time, it was not trivial. So then we wanted to kind of figure out, should we do it or no, and we did that by launching a KNX price calculator, because it's difficult, like it's difficult to find or get like some estimate of what scanning is going to cost you online, right? So we did this calculator, and people were clicking heavily. I think we got like 8,000 responses, 3,000 from Germany.
Yeah.
And the result was basically that I don't know, but let's say ballpark. I don't know if the numbers are 100% correct, but let's say 75% of people that buy KNX have an iPhone.
Yeah. And they want to use Apple Home, right? Yeah.
I think that's everybody that has iPhone. It's more prone to using things that are software from Apple, but even more. So this is the really important data is that, and this was for Germany, 50% of households that have KNX installed are 100% Apple based. So there's no Android. Any family member, no smart devices, so it's completely Apple. So then we saw that this is really important, and that was before the breach. So we came a long way from there, from then, but we see that this Apple Home is still
a driver,
the main thing why people know Matter and why they want it in their KNX setup. Yeah,
that's super interesting. Yeah, and of course, as we mentioned, when IKEA launches Matter devices, it's a big thing. And then there were also, I think Shelly put out some new Matter, those switches that they have. I saw also that Akara launched like a first Matter supported camera for specification 1.5. So that's also developing. But then one thing that was really interesting to me is that Wago, do I pronounce this correctly? Is it Wago?
I would also say Wago.
Let's say Wago, the company that is for electrical equipment. They also launched Matter, like these smart relays. And what's interesting about them is that they like really openly targeted this to smart home professionals, even in their ads. And again, I think this is an interesting approach, as you mentioned, that Matter can really be a good segue for KNX also, right? So you can base it on that, and you can communicate with the customer that they will be able to do this and these things if they put also Matter on KNX, right?
I think there was actually, now that we were in Frankfurt, there was a conference organized by CSA, and it was about the topic Matter for professionals.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I was too tired and beat up.
Understandable.
To attend. I'm a little bit sorry because now I don't know what was said there, but obviously, they talked about how to bring Matter closer to professionals and how it can be used and so on. So I think long term, or it's getting there. I think currently it's not there. Some things need to be fixed, particularly thread connectivity needs to be much better for this to be really, full on Matter, full on standard for professionals. But on the other hand, you can see companies from both parts of the spectrum. So, more gadget companies, and on the other hand, also more professional companies like Wago.
Yeah.
You have others like Siegenia or Eberle. They're a thermostat company, but they have a Matter enabled thermostat. So a lot of these companies are also kind of testing the field,
the waters,
testing the waters. They don't want to be completely left out. I think that never happened with any wireless standard on this scale, that you would have so many companies already launching or nearly launching products, so many professional companies. I think also this could be confirmed this year on Light+Building, although I didn't go around as much as I would have wanted to, to see different booths. So, but yeah, that was the general feeling that Matter is on the rise and so on.
That it could be a good addition to KNX, right?
I think, currently as an add-on, it's really great.
Yeah.
I already mentioned, what it does in the sales process, but there's also things like, it's like functionalities or features which are not covered that well in KNX. For example, smart lock. There are some products, but a lot of people will just go for a Nuki or for a Quara, or for Teddy, for example. There's really a lot of good choice in Matter, and this, normally it's not done via KNX device. So if you want a smart lock, if you want if you need a short lease, apartment or place for renting out, and you have KNX in it, and you need a smart lock, you will normally go with Matter. So there's a lot of use cases like this that are not available in KNX. For example, a vacuum cleaner, you have it in Matter, you don't have it in KNX. Fridges, like white appliances, like everything, a lot of things from Bosch are now Matter compatible. For me, also, what I really like is the IR blasters, because they're really easy to use, affordable, and they really work well. And other stuff, yeah. So currently, I see Matter as a really great add-on for KNX, to cover these small functionalities, at the end of the day, why not have those cute IKEA remotes for controlling shades and lights and so on? Yeah, if people want them, give it to them.
Yeah, of course. Okay, great. You gave me a good segue. That you mentioned that a lot of it was also happening in Frankfurt. That I really wanted to ask. Unfortunately, me personally, I wasn't on Light+Building this year. I will make sure in 2 years on next time I will join. I was holding down the fort here in the OneHome studio. But let's talk about the Light+Building a little bit. Just the experience. Like first, maybe if you would need to use like 3 words to describe this year's Light+Building for OneHome, what would it be, or for you?
Bigger, better, amazing.
That's I think this gives us an idea, right? What was happening. Like, of course, 2 years ago, it was the first time that we joined as exhibitors, right? Yeah. And it was quite an experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice also the first time.
Of course, it's first time is the only ones, right?
If I put things, I mean,
how would
first one you remember the most?
Yeah. How would you compare like OneHome 2 years ago at Light+Building and this year at Light+Building?
I mean, actually, of course, one thing, we had a bigger booth. We had a bigger team.
Yeah.
Better team, we served drinks and so on. Yeah. But what was really
wait. We served drinks. Let's just pause for a second. This is a custom lager beer with Dr. Smart Home drinking on it. Yeah. And we didn't only have this, right?
So we had some H2O, one
H2O waters, and then we had hard seltzer in 3 flavors, also OneHome branded. I just wanted to mention that because I found this so cool.
I said like no brochures, no flyers, no anything. Anything that you can take from OneHome is drinkable.
There you go.
So that was the concept, and I think it was really good. But to return to what was really the difference between Light+Building 1 and 2, let's say for us, like we can name them like that, is that and this is in line with the conversation that we are already having now. So I would say in Light+Building 1, we just released the server. It was a total MVP. It didn't have even the features that were promised in the beginning, like logic. It didn't have logic. It didn't have this or that. It didn't have a Matter controller. And also, at that point we were kind of really pitching Matter as the main thing on top of KNX for OneHome. Yeah? And people were asking us about, are you gonna do your own app? And we were kind of no, it's like we are betting on Apple Home and so on. But then in 2 years after Light+Building, so in line with what we were talking about, we saw that and we changed the philosophy in OneHome from Matter as the main system to Matter as an add-on. We still think Matter is great, and it could become also Matter as a main system at one point, but now it's just now for us it's more an add-on, like we are like we said, and the difference is that we felt that I feel that now in retrospective, on the first Light+Building, we were interesting because we were the first to have Matter. Of course, it was very new, so a lot of buzz around that. But at the same time, we were fighting against the current, right? So we were like, no, we're not gonna have our own app. And some people were like, yeah, but with Matter, you need a HomePod or you need this, that, and we were kind of defending it, right? But now with this new philosophy where, Matter is an add-on, but our main value is to, make KNX more stable, to do great software for KNX that does things in a better way and also does things that, other products don't do, like, for example, source tracking in the system monitor. Now we are much more, if I said before going against the current, now we're much more going with the current, right? So we have the local app. So, you don't need any HomePod, you don't need internet. Also, the app kind of OneHome app is a stable app. It doesn't have any limits and so on. And we felt that this year, there was much less explaining or, even kind of defending positions. And this year we really had a lot of, people coming in and saying like, wow, guys, what you did with this 5 update, it's really good, and system managers really well accepted. So I felt that this year, the existing customers were like, thank you for what you did in the last 2 years. And the new customers were like, wow, really, somebody is doing things like that. And so we had I would say, I wouldn't say that after the first Light+Building there was a negative feeling, but looking back, and comparing to this new one, I would say now we have much more synergy, and we are really going in line with what our customers, the system integrators, expect, plus giving them some candy on top that makes their life and workflow much sweeter. Yeah. So
that's a great explanation. Like, look, 2 years learning curve, right? You see what works, what doesn't, then you go in the direction that sticks, and here we are, right?
It's easy to get stuck at something, right? For example, Apple Home was such a big thing for OneHome at one point, right? This is where we grew.
Of course.
That, it was really difficult to make this switch in the head, right? Okay, let's not be like, okay, Apple Home is the main thing, and like Apple Home will be the main visualization on top of KNX, because we were pitching it for so long, like
you can get stuck in that, right?
You start believing yourself,
yeah,
right?
Of course.
and it's difficult. So but it was really important to make this switch. I think this was the main thing that we did in these last 2 years, and it plays really well on the market.
That's great. I have to also ask, there was like let's say a first look at OneHome Touch. People could see the hardware, they could touch the screen, they could see the UI, all the themes in real life. What were the general reactions? What was the consensus.
So it's really, a lot of people stopped at our booth because of the touch. So the touch was in a visible position, and a lot of people were like, they stopped to just check it, to touch it, and so on. Of course, this touch that we were showing was, not the final mold, not the final hardware.
Of course, yeah.
And the software was a mock-up. So, there was a lot of questions like, okay, so it's going to be flush mounted like this and so on. And then we had to say, no, the molding is still being done and so on and so on. So I would say, it was a good attraction for people to look at. Also, we explained it to everybody in these few sentences, what's coming, and there's going to be Sonos, there's going to be SIP, total customization, easy configuration, and so on. But yeah, of course, we had much more to say about the server at the end. So the big part of the pitches and explanations and discussions were about the server. And then the touch was more of a teaser. But of course, we saw that once it's done and, with the modifications in molding and hardware that we're making now, it's going to be really great. It's going to be one of the best touches for mounting, configuration, and so on. We really see that how it's going to change the landscape for OneHome. So, better visibility, product that more people understand, because touch, it's like a phone on the wall.
Yeah,
everybody understands it. Whereas,
it, right,
server is something in the fuse box.
Of course.
It's so yeah. I mean, I was a little bit sorry that we don't have more to show.
We will have soon.
But of course, I was happy with what we were showing.
Of course, yeah.
But knowing what's coming, it's like I was saying, like, why don't we have a?
Yeah. Of course.
That was just me, I mean,
let's say good things take time, right? And I can say I had the chance to just like try a little preview, and it's just amazing. Like the responsiveness, the customization, the snappiness of the UI, and how quickly it also controls, devices. I think you guys watching or listening, you will be really, really, really excited to try it out in real life once it's available, because it's something else. Let's say it's something else.
I didn't try it out yet in this way. But
I have privileges.
Yeah. But I'm on it now.
Okay.
I'm targeting different developers. Like.
Who can give me access?
Where is beta?
Yeah.
Give me.
Amazing, Satya. Hey, I think it's fine if we end it at this point. This episode, we end it on this touching note, let's say. Again, thank you so much for your time. And you guys, if you have any questions that you have for Satya or for discussion here on the podcast, please leave it in the comments, or you can reach us out on our socials, so LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We will read your message and reply. And we'll make sure to also include that in the future episodes, because, of course, this podcast is meant for this, so we can communicate.
But you need to get some other guests.
I have two reserved already.
Episode 3 is not.
Maybe we'll have you as a third wheel. Maybe we'll have you as a third wheel. No, Satya. We love to hear you talk about OneHome, about the vision. So really thankful. And let's end it here. Thank you so much for watching and for listening. Handshake. Goodbye, guys.
Goodbye.